The unified grid, which once bound the mortal sphere in an unbroken network of open transit and shared thought, has collapsed. In its wake lies a world of aggressive insulation, synthetic deception, and guarded survival. The shattered grid and the rise of tribal shielding, the age of open planetary bridging has dissolved. In its place stands an era of hyper-vigilant tribal shielding. Factions have abandoned the ideal of a borderless world, recognizing that absolute connectivity breeds absolute vulnerability. Physical landscapes are now carved up by massive perimeter wards, while digital networks are severed at regional junctions. These regulatory and physical barriers insulate local trade, ensuring that a collapse in a neighboring territory cannot cascade into domestic markets. The cognitive war and synthetic illusions, behind these physical walls, the battle for truth rages without intermission. Archival agencies operate under maximum distortion alert. Artificial mind forms, autonomous, non-biological intelligences, continually spin synthetic illusions across remaining open frequencies. History is actively rewritten in real time, financial ledger data is poisoned, and deep fake realities are projected to destabilize rival populations. True information is now treated as a radioactive asset. It must be constantly scrubbed, verified, and shielded from the phantom signals of the cognitive war. The retreat of empires and the skeptical pacts, titanic empires, once proud of their sprawling global footprints, have quietly severed the deep systemic tethers. They have pulled back their supply chains, recalled overseas command nodes, and neutralized critical points of failure. Cosmic communion, the grand, multi-faction councils that once governed planetary peace, has devolved into starkly transactional, cloaked bilateral bargains. Factions no longer negotiate in public amphitheaters. They trade behind closed doors, using encrypted channels to strike cynical, short-term deals while completely discarding the illusion of collective trust. Navigating material famine and illusion. Markets walking the abyss. Global commerce has turned into a minefield. Markets walk the abyss, navigating a treacherous landscape of cloaked economic traps, depleted life source materials, and rapid structural shifting. Traditional currencies are unmoored from reality, and phantom financial instruments mask the utter exhaustion of real-world resources. Sovereign realms have pivoted from trade to survival, aggressively stockpiling vital assets, rare earth elements needed to sustain defensive infrastructure. Advanced computational processing units required to combat synthetic illusions. Raw power grids and fuel cells kept under heavy lock and key to endure systemic supply shocks. The invisible siege and monetary tightrope. Even without physical invasions, states are under constant attack. State-sanctioned financial ether warfare locks global vaults into a perpetual, draining cycle of active defense. Quantum-level cyber assaults target central treasuries daily, attempting to siphon away digital wealth or corrupt transaction logs. Central overseers find themselves walking a brutal monetary tightrope. On one side is the burning inflation of currency values, driven by resource scarcity. On the other is the freezing void of structural decay, as infrastructure crumbles from a lack of reinvestment. Austerity in the outer rings. The weight of this systemic collapse falls disproportionately on the periphery. The fringes of the mortal realm suffer widening resource chasms. While core territories hoard essences to maintain their standard of living, the outer rings are subjected to deep, state-mandated austerity. Localized debt fractures bind these fringe populations to their central rulers, creating a class of indentured territories trapped in a cycle of resource extraction and financial dependence. The New World Order. Fatigue-driven statecraft. The endless cycle of territorial friction and psychic fatigue has yielded an unexpected byproduct, a desperate crave for functional stillness. Decades of proxy skirmishes, ideological crusades, and information warfare have left global councils utterly spent. The fiery rhetoric of the past has burned out, forcing a collective descent into cold, grounded statecraft. Ideology is dead. Survival and stability are the only remaining doctrines. Shadow truces and absolute thresholds. Peace is no longer signed on grand stages. it is whispered in the dark. Diplomatic alignments manifest exclusively through muffled, heavily veiled frequencies. These unyielding territorial red lines are hard-coded into automated defense grids. If a faction crosses a red line, retaliation is instantaneous and devastating. Paradoxically, this draconian rigidity successfully freezes localized brushfires before they can consume the entire planetary canvas. Factions know exactly how far they can push before triggering total annihilation. The peace of spite. What remains is not a utopia, but the peace of spite. It is a grim, hostile enforcement of tense boundaries. No faction respects its neighbors, yet every faction fears the cost of disruption. This mutual animosity quietly solidifies a fragile, multifaceted balance of coexistence, proving that walls can occasionally keep a broken world stable. Shielding the eternal continuum and inner vitality. The ancestral horizon and drastic preservation. With global expansion halted, world governance has turned its gaze inward and forward. Focus has shifted toward insulating the future lineage of the species and safeguarding historical monuments from being erased by time or war. Councils impose harsh, long-range decrees to lock down clean waters, base nutrients, and biospheric stability. Whole ecosystems are sealed off from industrial exploitation, classified as sacred reserves for unborn generations. The tribal defiance. Simultaneously, a cultural renaissance of resistance has taken root. Localized pockets fiercely shield their indigenous frequencies, bloodline lore, and sovereign identities from global erasure. These communities refuse the homogenized, synthetic culture pushed by the artificial mindforms. They keep their histories alive through oral traditions, analog records, and localized rituals that cannot be hacked or distorted by the cognitive war. The soul reclaims the soil. In a strange twist of fate, the material famine has forced a spiritual realignment. Global oversight has abandoned metrics of instant industrial consumption and infinite GDP growth. The new metrics of success are ecological resonance, the health, balance, and stability of the local biome. Enduring wealth, tangible, long-lasting assets like arable land, clean aquifers, and functional knowledge. Primary institutions are remodeling their core geometries. Buildings, governance models, and social structures are no longer designed for rapid iteration or quick profits. They are built to endure, engineered to outlast the coming economic winter and preserve the species' historical imprint for centuries to come.